Good afternoon, dear viewers, and welcome to today's live session on our GETI Live Talk Forum under the hashtag Disruptive Education Movement, which is an initiative of the Global Education and Training Institute under the mentorship and guidance of Dr. Sunita Gandhi, with a grand vision of transforming education to facilitate the teaching learning process through transformation in education. This is Joya Khan, your host for the afternoon, as Ambassador of Change from GETI, and I feel glad to share that we at GETI are committed to enhancing professional development through teachers' trainings, innovations, strategizing, polishing, and implementing to facilitate learning. We share wonderful ideas with practice and present endeavors to break the shackles of the old and ring in the new, moving ahead with a goal oriented approach leading to positive outcomes. So, this afternoon, I am very privileged to welcome Miss Rahman, who is with us all the way from Syria. And Miss Rahman is an authorized Imperial UK English teacher, conductor of communicative workshops, and a designer of personalized courses. She is an English teacher with a BA in English Literature and has 10 years of experience and expertise in teaching English. And Miss Rahman's topic for the afternoon is remodifying the temporary to be the permanent. So over to you, ma'am. A very, very warm and hearty welcome. We are truly elated to have you with us this afternoon. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for the lovely introduction. I really appreciate your kind words and everything you said. The honor is mine, actually. And thank you very much for the great initiative. Just one little thing. The name is Kinda. Okay, I guess
Okay,
you mix the speakers. Okay.
okay.
Well, yeah. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you are. My name is Kinda, and I'll be sharing with you a topic related to the how education or teaching has changed since 2020 after we had that major shift. Now I'm gonna share my screen. Okay. Can we see it, Miss Joya?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Thank you. Okay. So from the title, you have the remodifying the temporary to be the permanent. Now I'm going to start actually with talking a bit about the title. Now the title itself acknowledges the shift that we had that actually we thought at the beginning is going to be temporary. Okay, we're just going to have to deal with it for a short time. And then we're going to go back to our old fashioned traditional methods of teaching in class and using the textbooks as we used to do. Now, this thing has actually proved itself to be, yeah, it's not temporary, it's actually a permanent thing. And it's something we have to live with and we have to adapt to in order to actually shift from everything we had known previously before the COVID-19 struck and everything. So I'm gonna start here actually with two questions. The first question I usually start with whenever I'd like to discuss something about online teaching is this: what do you miss as teachers in the online teaching class? I have one question, Ms. Raya. Can audience participate in giving answers back to me or no? Hello?
Through the chat box only.
Okay, through the chat box only.
I will
Okay.
read out the answers to you in
Yeah,
case they put up the answers. I will read it
yeah.
out.
Okay, it would be lovely. Thank you very much. So I'll repeat the question is this: what do you miss as teachers in the online teaching class? So whenever you have an online session, what is the first thing you have in mind? Okay, I really miss, for example, having my blackboard or my whiteboard behind me. I really miss having my desk. Some teachers say that. What about you? Anything you'd like to share about this thing?
I cannot see any answers yet, ma'am.
Okay. Well,
As
I'll
soon
share
as
then.
as soon as the answers are there, I'll read them out. Don't worry.
All right, thank you very much. So I'll share some of the answers that previous teachers have given to me regarding this one. Most of them they actually missed going to class to dress up and go to class, open the door, and just setting up your desk before your students, setting up your table, setting up your desk before your students come to the class, and getting everything prepared and everything. So it was actually more of the actual physical materialistic thing of actually going out of your home and heading to the classroom. Now, the next one is this: what do you think students miss in the online teaching class? So it's not only us teachers who miss things related to the offline teaching. It's actually students also who miss some things. I'll also, since we don't have that really quick answers for the audience, I'm gonna share immediately the answers I had been given previously from some students, and some of them were actually my students. What do you think your students miss in the online teaching class? Well, my first guess when I ask this question is that my students actually they missed that chit chat between them inside the classroom. The old thing of passing papers and whispering things together. They actually missed having real discussions when, for example, when you have a discussion with your teacher or with your friends and your teacher, you don't have actually to wait for the online thing, the online connection, the online communication. And I'm sure a lot of us will still somehow, to some extent, we still actually suffer from this problem of the poor connection, that not all students have access to this really good connection to make sure that everyone has the same, let's say, level of accessibility. So this is actually something we didn't have to worry about in our offline classes. Another thing students miss is the, let's say, the nonverbal communication they had together inside the class and together with their teacher. So I'm sure most of us, when in our offline classes, we used to go in the class and with our instinct, with our gut, we used to know that this student is not well today, or he or she they are not themselves today. Something's wrong with them. And I used to do it actually a lot. I mean, I would notice if someone is not feeling well. I would notice if someone is not really concentrating or following with me. So I would just call their names or ask them for to talk to them after the class, etc., etc. So these are most of the main things students missed, and what I said previously about the things teachers missed. So let's move on now. Just a second. Oh, sorry. Yes. So let's move on to this slide. So we have this big word of change. It goes without saying that COVID-19 has taught us a lot about change, and he remodified a lot of things in our lives, not only education, but when it comes to everything related in our lives, things we took for granted, and now we have to think of new ways in order to make them, let's say, applicable according to to the, the new things that are changing in our time. Now, after we had this word change, after we had this step of change, we had to modify. If you can see here, we had to modify the change we had. So in the context of education, we had to modify our classes, we had to modify our syllables, we had to modify our pedagogy, and everything related to that. Now, the modification step leads us to the transition. Now, the modification step and the transitional step both were actually one of the biggest obstacles we had to overcome at the very first, period of 2020, when we had the whole compulsory shift to online classes. Now, when we talk about the step of transition here, actually it was context based. Because not all teachers had not all teachers, institutions, schools, or universities had the ability to actually have their classes delivered online. Or maybe they thought that, okay, it's fine, we will stop for a month, or okay, 2 months, and then we can pick up where we left. But then this leads us to the transform here, to the step of transforming, because these universities or schools who actually stop their classes for 2 months, let's say 3 months, they actually had that wake up call of that we can't stay, without. Um, okay, can you see my slide, Ms. Joya?
Ma'am, we request you to kindly change your slides. There is only one slide that can be seen.
Really? I changed
Yes.
3 slides, for
No,
real?
the slides, I can only see the first one, remodifying the temporary to be. Now it has changed.
Okay, look, I'm gonna leave it this way. Maybe it's easier. Is it
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, this slide we can see, but the others that you changed did not change. That's why I
Actually,
sent you the
it
message.
was this one
Yeah.
about what do you think students miss in the online teaching class. I discussed this one actually when I said that about the nonverbal communication between classmates and the students with their teacher, if you remember. And I talked about the way we teachers used to go inside the class, and we would immediately know if a student is not well or he has a problem or anything. I talked about myself, that I would actually talk to them, tell them what's wrong, etc. So it was number two actually about this question about what do you think students miss in the online teaching class. Most of students who answered this question were actually about the nonverbal communication they had inside the class. It was more of, also more about related to the let's say being mentally shifted because they changed the place where they take the class. I mean, of course, this thing is real because, like we, for example, anyone who doesn't feel well, if he takes a walk or if he changes the way he where he is, he will definitely have a change of mood, if we can say so. After I finished this, I moved to this slide. Okay, I'm gonna repeat myself really quickly here. Okay, so as I was saying, we have the big word change, which was actually a must for us, and because of COVID-19 and everything, uh, we had to a lot of a huge change, not only in the field of education but also in every field of life. And We had to change a lot of things we took for granted, and we had to come up with new ways in order to make it applicable in the new world we have today. Now, the next step after we had this change is to modify it, and we had to modify this change, and it maybe yes, all of us, we modify the idea that we have to change the way we deliver our classes, we have to change the way we deliver our lessons. But then this leaves us, takes us to the transition here, to the step of transition. As I said earlier, not all educational centers, not all universities, not all institutions had the opportunity or had the, let's say, the infrastructure of being able to do this transition to online teaching or online classes. Simply because they didn't have it in mind. I mean, we had a normal life of having our offline classes and everything. So the online sessions were just, something extra or something, let's say, put on the shelf. Just maybe when we really, really need it, we would go for it. But so this here in the transition, in the step of transition, most I know personally, most universities and schools, institutions, they had stopped their classes. They had, maybe they said, okay, we will stop for 2 months, 3 months, and then we can pick up where we left. But then it became clear that this thing is not temporary. This online classes, this online teaching is here to stay, and we can't just, stay in the shade and not work on that. This leads to this transform here. This transform. Now, the transform actually this is the big umbrella of transforming everything we knew, from the material we have to use, the syllabus we have to use, the pedagogy we used to follow, and everything. So this transform here was actually context based, since we are talking about different age groups. We're talking about different students who have different levels of accessibility to the internet, be it or even some students, they don't have laptops, for example, so they would have their lessons delivered through their phones, for example. Okay, some of them would use tabs. So we just have to bear in mind the accessibility the student had or the student has. So it took, when we talk about transform or transformation here, we're transforming, we're talking about syllabus, we're talking about the material that's used in order to deliver this class, and we're also talking about the pedagogy that's followed inside the class. The shift here is also really interrelated with the transform, because when you go through, when you reach this step of shift, actually you are just applying the syllabus that you transformed. You're applying the new pedagogy you have just followed or decided to follow, and the same goes with material. Now, the last step is adjust. Not the last, maybe before the last. It's to adjust. This one is really difficult to come to. Again, it's because of the different students that you have, their different levels of accessibility to the internet. Some students, they don't have that really good motivation when it comes to the dealing with technology. This is some students, but the majority of them, they have this really good knowledge when it comes to technology, since they had the opportunity to deal with it. But the problem always lays in the thing that you want to make sure that whatever app you're using, whatever website you're using, whatever material you're using as a teacher, you need to make sure that your students get the best benefit of it. It's like when we used to have our offline classes. We wanted to make sure that I want to walk out of class making sure that each and every one of my students got the main ideas or got the best benefit I wanted or I planned previously for my session. Now, this with online class, it's really a huge challenge because, as I said, not every student has the same, let's say, interaction inside online classroom that the way they used to inside the offline classes. Now, theoretically saying, once you reach that adjust step, you'll have the new, which is the new. The new here, I'd like to say that it refers to the actually to the present here. Now we're talking 2 years after having COVID-19 and after having this online classes and everything. We have what we call the new classes and the new way of delivering our sessions and our lessons and everything. Now, what I'd like to talk about now leads me to this. It takes me to this idea. If you remember, I talked about when I talked about the step of transition and transform. I talked about pedagogy. Now, of course, all of us teachers, we are aware of all the methods of teaching. I mean, we worked on ourselves, reading about them, applying them, being up to date with everything until we had the communicative approach of teaching. Now, everyone who has read about the pedagogy and read about teaching methods is aware that each and every, I'd say, time with its own changes had its own pedagogy. Okay, what about now? Don't we need one? Of course we do. I If you just Google a bit, you would see that since 2005, 2006, up to 2018, 19, there were some approaches when it comes to integrating technology with education. There were approaches, but not actually teaching methods, and they were not really highlighted because, as I said, we didn't need them because, okay, we have our offline classes. We won't need any online strategies or any online methods unless we must or we really have to, unless it's a necessity. But nowadays, yes, we need pedagogy related to online teaching, online classrooms, how to manage classrooms, how to make sure our students are motivated enough in order to go to the class, in order to log in the class and to be able to participate in everything. I know for sure, this is from my students, most of them, they don't have that really high degree of motivation the way they used to when we had our offline classes, because, as I said, the change of place had them change their mentality, had them change their the way they think and the way they would actually perceive things, and it opened a lot of things. Now, an important idea I'd like to highlight when it comes to pedagogy in the in the time of online learning is that it's context based. Online learning has a lot of varieties. I mean, there's nothing that would remain the same. Even if it's the same syllables that you're teaching, I'm sure you're going to teach it really in a very different way from one group to another group online. I'm sure you had some differences in your offline classes, but in the online class, it has its own environment. It has its own, let's say, steps to follow, things to notice, um, especially because with online classrooms, we have now the opportunity that you're going to have a lot of students from a lot of different countries, not necessarily from the same country, that you would have like this culturally different group in one session, and you as a teacher, you'll have to be the monitor of everything that goes around and everything that happens inside the session. Now, the pedagogy here, since I said it's context based, and I highlighted the idea that you're going to have a mini, let's say, a really small community, but yet it's very varied. You're going to have to go to learning and teaching methods. Learning and teaching here, of course, a teacher, it goes without saying. Since you're a teacher, then you are a forever learner, because in our occupation, in our job, it goes without saying that you really need to be up to date with everything that happens around the world, because your students can ask anything, expecting you to have an answer. I'm not saying here that the teacher must have the answers to everything. No, but the teacher must be knowledgeable, resourceful, just in order to embrace that the curiosity their students have, or just to guide them where they can go in order to have the perfect answer. If in case you as a teacher or I as a teacher, I don't have the answer. After all, I'm not Google. Okay, I'm a human being, but still, I try to manage the things related to my area of specialty, related to anything that can add to my expertise. The last thing here, we have technology. As you can see, these three ideas are very interrelated. So you go from the teaching method to learning and teaching as a teacher, and then you go now to technology. Now, technology is very interrelated to learning and teaching, because we teachers, we actually somehow we transformed ourselves to an IT expert, because we have to, okay, an app is now available for teachers. Okay, I need to check it. Maybe I will need it in the future. Who knows? Maybe the learning tools, the teaching tools, and I mean, we have a lot of variety of learning tools nowadays. Of course, it's up to the teacher what they like to, what they prefer to use. But from my point of view, it's better to stay updated with everything that goes on. Yes, it's difficult to stay updated with everything, but let's at least keep it most of the things that occur in the field of technology. This leaves me here, since I'm talking about teachers being updated with everything related to technology, apps, platforms, and everything. I'd like to share this. Learn to unlearn. The first one is this: limiting beliefs. When we at the very I still remember this talk. At the very beginning of 2020, and at the very beginning of the COVID-19 and the shift to online teaching, we had this limiting beliefs that, okay, online classes are just temporary thing. But we're not gonna have to deal with it. Okay, I can take a month off, 2 months off, then I can get back to the classes, to my offline classes, and that's it. And why would I bother myself with learning new things? These were the words of so many teachers I knew. But now, 2 years later, I believe that they have very different views regarding online classes, because the limiting beliefs they had at the time, I'm sure they have changed now with everything. I mean, now, in some countries, I attended a conference last month. No, actually, it was in this month at the beginning of May. Students now, they have their classes in VR, okay, with the metaverse and everything. So maybe, who knows, maybe we will not even use Zoom, we will not even use the platforms we use now. We will ditch them and use other things, other, um, more advanced things. This takes me to the next idea, which is technophobic. Now, a lot of teachers, they actually didn't want to deal with anything related to technology, simply because they were afraid of using technology. They were afraid of using it wrong, and their fear took them to the degree that they didn't even want to try. But I believe nowadays this is the main thing that we need to unlearn. Anyone who is afraid of using technology, I believe that they should have break this barrier. The last thing with number three is lack of communication. Now, this is one argument that teachers used to use when it comes to online classes, that students don't have that communication compared to offline classes. Now, I agree with that, of course, because as I said earlier, most of my students, they missed the nonverbal communication. But still, we teachers, since we had the ability, teachers, educators, institutions, universities, we have had the ability to change the way we deliver lessons over this really huge period of time. So of course we have the ability to make it up for our students when it comes to this idea of lack of communication. Now, actually, there's a trick I do when I have my students, when I deliver my lessons through Zoom. I would actually, when I send them into breakout rooms, I, for example, tell them that you have 3 minutes or 4 minutes to do the task. I would give them 1 extra minute. This 1 extra minute actually is to give them the chance to have a little chit chat between them, to have that, just to make up the things they missed in the offline class. This is, for me, it works for me. Somehow, students, they, for example, I tried to make up the things they missed inside the classroom. And this leaves me here, this takes me to the fourth idea, which is teacher centered. And now, this idea, I can't but to mention it in each and every talk I do, which is the teacher centered idea. Please, with online classes, this idea of teacher centered must be erased. Just like the way we erased it in offline classes, we need to unlearn the teacher centered also in the online classes. Now, most teachers, unfortunately, most teachers I know, when they have online classes, they would just talk and talk and talk. They would just, say to the students, okay, do this and do that. And then after that, okay, just, it was just more about giving instructions. And you'll find the teacher talking all the time and the student just listening and nodding. Yes, the student's cam is on. He's muted, of course, but is his mind with you? Is he following what the teacher is saying? This is the idea. So learn to unlearn this idea of teacher centered, and please, in also in the online classes, make it student centered as the way we did it in the classroom. Now, since I talked about the VR and I talked about the apps we use, I'm sure you have seen this picture a lot of times. Here we had a lot of, yes, here we had a lot of, we have a lot of options when it comes to apps. Okay, most of these I'm sure you're aware of, all of them. Okay, so what should I do? What should I use? Which one to use? Which app to use? Again, it goes with your connection. Okay, it goes with your students' accessibility to the internet, where you find yourself most comfortable with, etc. The main idea and the main point is that you would make sure that your students would have the same level of, let's say, the same level of understanding, if you can say, the same level of communication. If not the same, let's say to the best degree you can have, just to make sure that your students, they got the benefit you have planned previously on your notebook or on your planner. I want my students to go to log out of class, to leave class today, being able to 1, 2, 3, for example. This is actually really context based, and it's your personal choice and everything. Now, since we are highlighting the students' communication and we're highlighting student participation inside the class, I would like to share with you these four techniques. I'm sure you're aware of it, but I'd like to also share it with you because they have proved to be the best we can in online classrooms. Now, the first one is presentations. Presentations will actually give your students the opportunity to actually apply everything they have learned throughout the course or throughout the unit, the lesson. Whenever you do the presentation, be it mid-term presentation or final presentation, it's up to your syllables how you planned it. It gives them the opportunity to actually talk, to actually speak. It gives them the opportunity, for example, to work together. If, for example, you ask three students max to prepare presentation together, this is an online classroom, you'd give them the same feeling of offline classrooms where we had them doing projects together. The second is actually pictures. Now, this is I always do it inside my in my classroom in my online classes, is that I would post a picture and I would lead the students into a discussion. Okay. Um, um, I try actually to just to stay away from PDFs inside the I don't really actually using PDFs inside the class. I would actually rather use pictures, videos, audios, because on an online class is at the end you feel it's like a show, and you want your students to be excited in order to participate in that show. So I would post a picture, I would show them the picture, and I would lead them into a discussion. Step by step, I would just, put myself backstage and just leave them to have their discussion. I just monitor them, trying to make them, express their ideas, express the things they want to talk about. And of course, I put a lot time limit for this because I don't want them to just have a speaking thing or a speaking activity just the entire class. It goes to 10-15 minutes max. This actually also it takes me to this the discussions. Now, the discussions is actually one of the most vital things in online classes. This is why I opened my talk with a discussion. I thought that the audience would be able to participate with me through my two questions in the beginning. But it's okay. So when we talk about discussions here, it's really important to highlight the idea to make the students actually active throughout the session, to make them participate throughout the session, not only just to sit and to watch something or to just listen to the teacher and do things, etc., etc. The last thing I'd like to share about this slide is the interviews. This is a trick or an activity I love to do. I do it with every level, from elementary till advanced levels. I love doing interviews. I would have my students in groups of two, and I would ask them to make an interview with each other. This is gonna be their project. Most of the time, I do it in the middle of the course. After they have finished, like mid of the course, I would ask them, okay, so now you're required to have an interview with each other. And I'm not gonna specify the questions. You can have your questions from the things you have learned. You can ask them about everything you want. You can talk with each other and have that interview together, just to break the that fear of actually using the language, and also the fear of talking to a screen like the way I am using now, because after all, not everyone is comfortable when it comes to talking to a screen after the things we have now, because as human beings we all need that non-verbal communication in order to assure to us we're doing the right thing, am I missing something, and etc etc etc. Now, this is the last slide here, goes without saying that the instructor or the teacher, the educator, the let's say the management, and every let's say every institution, everyone had another burden actually when it comes to online teaching, because we had to think about things we took for granted. Now, the first one is the academic integrity, and when it comes to an academic integrity, you just want to your students to have the same academic level when it comes to teaching, the same they had it in their offline classes, and this will add up to the already high workload we teachers have to do or have to bear when it comes to delivering our classes, because now we have to make sure that the material I'm using is applicable in inside an online classroom, or if it's not applicable, maybe I should shift it in order to make it applicable. I would, for example, delete some activities or add some activities in order to make sure that my material would suit the online class. Now, and of course, if you remember, I said earlier that I, as a teacher, I would walk into my class and I would immediately notice if one of my students is not feeling well, he is not very good. So we teachers, we have that got that hunch of feeling the students if they are well or not. This leaves us to bear to put in mind this new idea that we have the students isolation, because as I said, students now have just to sit on their desk, maybe not, sometimes on their bed only, they don't get out of bed, and they just turn on their computer and they look at a screen. Now, this actually, some students, they don't have that good, let's say, ability to adapt to this, because most of them, they need that change of place in order to change the way they think, in order to change their mood, maybe to be more active, etc. So just as teachers, we really need to think of students' isolation, their mental health, to make sure that yeah, everything's fine, everything's good, just to have that chit chat, just to make sure that everything is going really well. And the last one is technical issues. Technical issues is something we really need to live with and pray that it will disappear one day, because every time one student or two students, they would have technical issues, they would, for example, have poor connection, they would um, have their battery was about to die and everything. Still, technical issues is something we need to bear with, we need to live with, until one day it will come and they will just be a mythology for everyone. Well, actually, this is everything I wanted to share with you about online classes and online teaching. Now, the last idea I would like to share is to repeat myself, to repeat the title of my presentation, is that online teaching, online classes, online education, online everything is here to stay. We have to live with it, yes, and we have to adapt with it um, to the best degree that we can, because as you can see now, every institution, every university, every training center has their own online platform now. Okay, you don't want or we can't have offline classes. All right, we have the online classes. Of course, nowadays we went back to our offline classes. We have now blended learning. Yes, but we still have this option of online classes, but it's not on the shelf anymore. It stands next to our offline classes. It goes hand in hand together now. Who knows, maybe in the future we will just leave offline classes and we'll just stick with the online classes and the online education in the future with every, I mean, I'm sure everyone is being updated with everything that happens around the world. I mean, goes to AI or VR and how how students are have that new experience now. I'm still trying to update myself when it comes to VR, and I'm really interested in students' motivation when it comes to VR and how they will have their lessons delivered through that technique, through that technology. Thank you very much for attending my session today. It was lovely to have you, and thank you so much, Ms. Roya, for giving me the chance to be part of your live sessions. If you have any questions, if you want to discuss the things related to online sessions, online education, I would be more than happy. You can find me on Facebook. This is my name, Kinda Abdulrahman. And you also have my Gmail and LinkedIn. Gmail kinda4242@gmail.com. And the LinkedIn is also Kinda Abdulrahman. This is all I have to say. Again, thank you so much, GTI, and hope you the best. Zoya? You're muted actually. Sorry, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Thank you so much, Miss Kinda.
Thank
And
you.
I think you made very relatable, very relevant points. And
Thank
all
you.
the time we focused on transformation, changes, and as they say, be the change that you want to see. And
Exactly.
especially if that change is for the better. And I think
Exactly.
during the COVID, the online system of education proved to be a very positive change because, you
Yes.
know, the entire education system went for a toss. And
Mm-hmm.
online learning during this scenario emerged as a victor ludorum
Mm.
amidst all the chaos and confusion. And I think it was a
Exactly.
ray of hope. It was a ray of hope for all the educators, for all the children, who, you know, the moment COVID started, we were at a loss thinking how we would communicate,
Yeah.
how would,
Yeah.
how would things progress. But then it brought the entire world of education on a platter into our very homes. Right,
Exactly.
ma'am? Yeah.
This is the
And
idea. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I totally agree with you.
yeah, it has become very easily accessible and
Mm.
can even reach to rural and remote areas. And I think flexibility is another interesting aspect of online learning. A learner can schedule or plan their time for completion of courses available online. Plus,
Yeah, well,
combining face to face.
actually, yeah, very good. Now, flexibility here when it comes to finishing their course, you're talking about the MOOCs maybe. But here I'm talking about the sessions that I personally deliver, so they are not recorded. Okay, so yeah, so it's like I shifted my offline classes to online classes, and I started to have my classes online. But the idea you're talking about the MOOCs is actually is one of the best things both teachers and students have, because now teachers, we can develop ourselves, we can work on our skills with no specific time. Okay, we can reschedule everything which with how it suits our time, and the same goes to learners or students. Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And combining face to face lectures with
Yeah.
technology has given rise to blended learning and
Yeah.
flipped classrooms. I think this has
Exactly.
added a zing to the teaching scenario. And it can
Exactly.
increase the learning potential in the students and students can learn anytime, anywhere. So I
Exactly.
think many important skills can be developed and encouraged. So I think that was a very, very engaging session, ma'am. And
Thank you.
I am also of the view that organizations that were very apprehensive in the beginning to switch on to the online mode have
Mm.
changed their way of thinking, their mindset, as they
Yeah.
have empowered educators and teams within their institutions. They have become more agile in reacting
Mm.
and adapting to this change. So I
Exactly.
think we'll be very happy if you could throw light upon one or two questions, ma'am.
Yes,
Uh,
of course.
Okay. One thing, like the children are also very free to, not to be present during an online class by
Yeah.
switching off their camera. So, how
Yeah.
can you ensure the quality of participation?
Okay. So you're talking about kids here, right?
Yes, actually.
Yes. Okay. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I don't teach young learners, but I'm gonna answer the question by this trick I know. You can ask for the parents or the caretakers to actually be present with the kid or the young learner to just be monitor their kid along the session, because after all it's a kid and he wants to play. He wants to have fun. Okay, so just the idea of a lesson maybe would make him okay, I don't want to go or I don't want to attend. So having a caretaker at home that would act would tremendously help you as a teacher to make sure that the child had the best benefit. Okay, and also teaching kids through online, it adds a lot of burden to the teacher because he wants or he or she wants their students to be, you know, integrate into their into the session. They want them to be excited, motivated to be able to be able to participate. And as we all know, most kids, they go through under the name of kinesthetic learners because they love to move and they love to jump. Maybe most of the time, kids love to jump. I don't know why. Whenever they know the answer. And the funny thing is that kids also jump in online classes when they know the answer. Yeah, so having a caretaker at home or a parent would tremendously help you to follow the learning process.
Thank you so much. I hope the parents are listening. I hope they are listening to this very important
Me too.
point made by Miss Kinder. They have an important responsibility to shoulder.
Of
Another
course.
question, ma'am. How can we add the human touch and maintain student retention in online classes?
Okay. Again, this is context based. A human touch to be remained in a whole technological class. Difficult, yes, but can be achieved. How? For example, I'll give you an example about a group of students I have. They are upper intermediate. This is something I do whenever I start a group online. In the first session, I just make it like, let's say, a chat session, just to make me, get to know each one of them and their interests. One group, I don't know how, but they were like five students, and the five of them were interested in films and movies. Okay, so what I did is this: at the end of every session or every two sessions, I had a clip of a movie, or I had something related to series they have already watched, and we had that discussion between them. Or maybe I would say, oh, you know what, yesterday I watched that movie, or yesterday I saw that video about the actor or actress. So it's just like, being to let your students know that you are interested in them, and that you actually you really you take care of everything they take care of. You are interested in the same things they are interested in. Somehow you'll make up that non-verbal communication, because I said this is one of the most things students really miss in online classes, that non-verbal communication. It's difficult, yes, but can be to some extent manageable, some extent. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. One last question. How many
Mhm.
hours do you expect the learners to be online classes each day? And actually, the screen time, screen time is, we all know that all said and done, this
Mm.
screen is not very good, be it laptop, be it our mobiles, be our tablets,
Right.
whatever. So, what is the screen time that you suggest for our learners?
Okay. Just one note before I start my answer. I teach English courses, but they are the conversational courses, academic English and general English. So the idea here is that my session it can be 60 minutes, or it can be goes until 90 minutes. Um, for a student who has all of their courses online, actually, honestly, more than 4 hours a day, it will be really difficult, because to be glued to your laptop, your phone, more than this is actually really tiring, and it will make you hate, absolutely hate, the process of learning. I mean, yes, someone would argument and say, well, people would say they sit for 5 and 6 hours on social media. Yes, of course, they will do that on social media, because mentally speaking, they are not obliged to be on social media. They are having fun. Maybe they are communicating with their friends and everything, but having your mind, occupied with a lot of things to deal with, things to learn, more than 4 hours on a laptop, on your phone. This is the best I could say number of hours. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. As I
Thank you.
said earlier, I think our audience have got wonderful takeaways. It was really an engaging session. And thank you for having taken out time and for being with us on Getty. And we are looking forward to having you again another day, another session on some other interesting topic. So thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
And thank you, dear viewers, and also the viewers who will eventually be seeing our program later. So I think each one of us has a lot to benefit from today's interesting session. And stay blessed. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Thank you. It was really honor. Thank you.